G'day Year 11 and welcome again to another YouTube. Thanks for listening. Now today we're taking a look at taxation, and this comes under the influences in establishing a small to medium enterprise. Have a think about taxation, but also from the perspective of it being an influence. How does tax influence or impact a business? So from today's lesson I want you to understand about federal, state and local government, their taxes, their fees, their rates, but also understand how that's impacting upon businesses. For the most part, it's probably a negative impact. There's compliance cost, and there's also the actual financial costs associated with paying these taxes. Okay, now taxation. What is tax? Good definition is that taxation refers to the various amounts of money that a business must pay in tax or funds to the government. There's three different levels of taxation, three different levels of government, and therefore three different levels of taxation. First is the federal government, and we're thinking about that Commonwealth level. We're talking about the Prime Minister, and the taxes that they have to pay we'll look at in just a little bit. There's also the state government taxes a business must pay. Now, the state government, that's headed by the Premier, and they've got a number of different taxes that a business must pay. We'll look at those again in a sec. And the last type of tax that a business must pay is given to the local government, or another name that you've probably heard in terms of local government is called the local council. And they're often called rates, but that's another type of tax a business is forced, influences by and must pay. Now, the first level of government is, and the taxes that they have are the federal government. There's two or three main types of taxes that the federal government levy or make business to pay that we'll have a look at today. They are PAYG tax, which is pay-as-you-go tax. This is where an employer, the boss, is required to take a percentage of the employee's wages from that worker. Then they must withhold that and give that to the government. They're not paying it themselves, but just say, I earn $115,000, which I do, then I don't get all that money. My boss, which is the Department of Education, they withhold probably about $28,000, $30,000 worth of that, a little bit each fortnight though, so it tallies up to that figure, and they will give that, required by law to give that to the taxation office. Now, another federal government tax that a business needs to pay, or is forced to, is the GST. That's called the Goods and Services Tax. It's charged, or businesses are charged, an additional 10% on top of their usual sales that they make. So I'll give you an example of how it's sort of calculated. If a car is sold for $10,000, then the business must pay $1,000 in GST to the federal government. That tax is later distributed to the state government, but we don't need to get into that. The last major tax that a business has to pay in terms of federal government taxes is called company tax. For the most part, a business or a company is charged 30% of their net profits in a company or business tax. Now, that's not 100% true these days. If you have turnover of less than $10 million, then you're charged 28.5%. All right, in terms of the next set of taxes businesses are forced to pay, therefore has that negative impact upon them, are state government taxes. There's two main ones we'll look at today. They are stamp duty and payroll tax. Now, stamp duty is when a business owner or even a private citizen, we're looking from a business perspective, whenever they purchase property of a large enough size, a factory, a new shop space, a motor vehicle, they'll be charged a fee for the purchase of that asset. I.e., for myself, when I bought my place back in the day for $472,000, I was charged probably about an extra $5,000 or $6,000, $7,000, $8,000 in stamp duty that I had to pay to the New South Wales state government. I don't know why, but it didn't help me too much, but forced to pay it. The other thing that bigger business and companies need to pay to the New South Wales state government, if the federal government ones weren't enough on their own, is payroll tax. This is an extra tax that these businesses who have total workers' wages greater than $638,000. So if you've got 7 workers, all earning $100,000 each, that's $700,000. That's in excess of the $638,000 I talked about. And the business must pay a New South Wales state government payroll tax. And that's an additional 5.5% of the total staff wages. Now, the last part or level of government in Australia and also of taxation is the local government. You'd better know it as the council. Now, this level of government levy a thing called council rates. And businesses have to pay it, households have to pay it, and they're used for things such as water, sewerage, waste management, development and building approvals and fees to be able to fund the local roads, the parks, the local infrastructure. All right, guys, thanks again for listening to these YouTubes, and see you next time.